Let's see if this is working.
Oh god.
You are using Hangouts.
Yeah, well, I'm using Streamlabs. It's been working so far. It hasn't been any issue. So far. That's always the case.
Hangouts? What is it, 2018?
Let's see. Yeah, we are good to go. Looks like we're up and running. So, hey guys, how you doing? It's been a long time.
It has. Last time, last time we streamed together was when we did an animation stream on the Bunderdome, and God, I don't remember when that was. That was months and months ago.
Yeah, and I basically kind of had to stop doing that because I was really trying to get my own comic going, and I was just needed to focus bad. Because I don't got the speed that you guys do. That's one thing I gotta give you guys major props for. Holy crap, you guys are producing content at a lightning fast pace. Congratulations, well done. What is this, your third book this year now?
Jeez. 1, 2, 3.
It's our fourth.
Our fourth.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Oh yeah, that's right, I missed one. I didn't get the Mandalorian.
It's not out yet in stores.
Yeah,
It'll be here in about a week.
I think a week, right?
Yeah.
End of September.
But you know
Well,
me, I'm the one Canadian who's just you're not gonna stop me from backing your campaigns.
Life finds a way.
Yes it does.
Well, the funny thing is that, I'm only going to disclose a part of this, but we actually had a trial run of Canadian backers that we mailed stuff to.
Oh yeah?
And it was not good. So out of 5, I think it was 5 or 7 packages that we sent, 2 out of the 7 had things wrong with them. One was damaged, and the other one, they contacted me and they said, "Hey, where is it?" And luckily, we were able to track it as far as it was delivered. And I said, "It is delivered at wherever you are." And they got to me a week later and they said it was put in the wrong post office box. And that's why I've been telling everyone, I'm like, look, we have so many problems with Canada Post. I mean, that's 2 out of 7 is not good. That's a terrible ratio to have.
That's so weird because I haven't had that kind of experience the other way. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because I use Canada Post obviously because I'm in Canada, and I've started shipping out some of the Wampool books for Troy. We'll get into some more Wampool stuff in a bit, but it's been reasonably priced, far more so than I thought it would be to send stuff to the States. It seems like it's much more expensive for you guys to send things to Canada than it is vice versa.
Yes.
Americans get the best of everything. It's great.
Well, and I learned it's because of the way exchange rates work. It's all part of trade. There are countries that we can send stuff to where it's cheaper than them sending stuff to us. So I think that's really interesting. For example, shipping to Great Britain is actually really cheap. Same thing with Germany. Yeah.
I would not expect that. I would expect it to be extraordinarily expensive to send things to Great Britain, if just because it's got to cross the ocean and stuff. So I mean that automatically kind of gets the assumptions up oh, this is going to be at least 2 or 3 times more expensive than the more local stuff.
Right, but I mean, for example, the same thing happens with Japan. I order stuff from eBay all the time from Japanese sellers, and it makes it to me within. The craziest one was I ordered this gift for my wife. It was a little plush toy, and it got here in 3 days, and I didn't pay extra shipping. It was just whatever eBay was charging for it. So it's crazy. I think part of it is how they do ship it. I think what happens is if they have a cargo plane that's carrying a boat ton of items on it once a week, and everything goes onto that plane, then obviously it's the same thing with any type of quantity. You get enough things on the plane, per unit, I mean, it's going to cost you less. So I don't know how they work it out as far as trade is concerned. I just know that looking at international, because that's always the first question people ask us, that is kind of the big hurdle to figure out. But it is a nightmare as of now.
Yeah, at first when I started doing this the crowdfunding stuff with Troy, I had a lot of assumptions going into it that really kind of got flipped on their head. Have you guys found that with any of the crowdfunding things? I mean, you guys have got a rhythm going by now, but when you were first getting into it, first getting started with What was the first campaign you did? I think it was Black Ops 2, or was it? No. It was Wall Might Second Turn, right?
Right, that was the first one that Mark and I did solo. Before that, I was the production manager on Trump's Space Force, so we learned a lot doing that.
Yeah.
That's actually where we learned not to do international shipping. So that answers your question.
So that's the one where you cut your teeth on it. Oh yeah, I do think I got Trump's Space Force directly from you guys that time. So yeah, there was a point in time where you weren't discriminating against me.
Exactly.
Against Canadians.
Yeah.
But who deserves it more than Canadians? Let's
Mexico is really hard to ship to, also.
Sometimes I'm keen to agree with you on a lot of that.
The thing is that I think we do have international customers who use courier services, and those apparently work really well. I know that's how Sashi gets all of hers, so I just send stuff to her courier, and then they send it to her, and she says that everything has arrived fine. I would say the second thing that we learned from that was it's better to have your book 100% done before you launch the campaign. Yeah. When we launched Space Force, we were so ahead of time that Brett Smith, who was our colorist, he was the last thing that we had to wait on, and we said, well, heck, if we're gonna deliver in November, then we need to go to print at the latest the first week of October. Mm-hmm. And I think Brett delivered the last page to me in mid-September. And the problem with that is that even though he was on time, it was still this idea of you are under the gun. Like every second counts, every day that goes by is a missed opportunity. And so we got those books to us, I think, 4 days before Thanksgiving. And then we had to wait on patches, and then that obviously took us into December. So then I said, no, let's just do everything ahead of time, take the gamble on our part, and that way, even if we lose money, what will happen is people will get their product on time, and they will say, wow, these guys are on time, and work from there. So that's how we move going forward.
So take the hit and just get things out on time, so that you can at least build up that sort of like trust between you and the customer.
Correct, and that's what you're seeing some of these smaller guys do. Like I know, for example, what's his name, Matthew Veely with Otis Stein, the Vestry Boys. They have, it's Pickles and Shabby that have Vestry, and they're doing that too, where they're having the book done ahead of time. So then it's just like, please read my book. The book is finished. You just need to get it in your hands, and we guarantee you'll like it so much that you'll come back for round 2. And again, that's a hit that they have to take on their part, because as kind of unproven creators, that is the way that they're establishing trust with the customer.
Yeah, that's definitely a lesson that we've learned as well with the Wampool campaign, because Troy wasn't he still wasn't fully settled in a new place yet. So, finding the time between his work and, searching for a place and doing the second issue. And then we also had an extra book that we were going to do, on top of that, that sets up stuff we're going to be doing, after and beyond Wampool. And it really, there's so much that can happen that you cannot account for, that you really don't want to be hamstringing yourself by having to be working on stuff, during the campaign, after the campaign. You want to have it done so that you can just go straight to just who do I send the money to, and start getting things moving. Yeah, but we are still struggling because as you guys know, and as many of our backers and followers on Twitter, both on the Science Wizard site and Science Wizard account and my account, is that we got royally screwed by the people that we were originally going to be printing with. So that personally hit me financially really, really hard. And I've just been recovering ever since I got the books printed, because that had to come out of my pocket. And that was June or July that I got them printed finally. So yeah, still recovering.
Yeah, getting started. I mean, that's what we tell people who ask us, I want to get started on crowdfunding comics on Indiegogo. What's your advice? And of course, the first thing, like Tim said, the first thing we tell them is have your book done 100% so you're ready to go. But the other thing is, if it's your very first crowdfund, set your reasonable expectations. Yeah. Don't expect to make a fortune. And I think a lot of people they have these weird delusions that they're going to make, a fortune on their first crowdfund, when really when we did our first crowdfund, just Tim and me, when we did Wall Might First Term Part 2, we made pretty much enough to fulfill the book. And then we did our crowdfund after that, which was Black Ops 2 Hair Trigger. We made a little bit more, and enough to fulfill, and then enough to keep a little bit for ourselves, not much. And then we've done a little bit better each time. We're on our 6th or 7th crowdfund at this point. But a lot of people, they expect right out the gate that they're going to make like $100,000 on the very first crowdfund, and they're like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There's this comic strip called Pearls Before Swine, and there's this strip I remember where the pig character is walking by and he's holding this huge box, and the rat character is like, Pig, what are you doing? He's like, I'm starting a blog. I'm like, okay, well, what's the box for? All the money I'm going to make. And that's kind of, every time I see, people who expect to make, a fortune on the very first crowdfund comic, I always think of that little comic strip. It's like, yeah, get real. But you build up your reputation.
Well, I think you're definitely right on that one. Like, you can probably expect to even make a loss a lot of the times on your first book. We definitely did. Like, we did not, we thought we had everything priced out right. We didn't. And then, during the campaign, we got way too excited. We got a little too excited, and we started adding on all these extras. We just wanted to give everyone the biggest bang for their buck. And there's just a lot of stuff that we did not take into consideration when we were in the thick of it. We were in the heat of it. So we learned a lot about curbing our enthusiasm too, with that first campaign. And if you don't if you don't have things ready beforehand, if you don't price everything out and keep things as it's been priced out, you're gonna run into troubles financially. It's going to be a struggle. I probably lost between $5,000 and $7,000 on the one pool campaign.
Yeah, it's a big number, especially because in comics, you've heard that not tried and true necessarily, but you've heard that statement that it costs about $10,000 to actually go into production, and that is not too far off, because you have minimum print costs. That obviously is a big thing, and if you, depending on the size of your team, everyone has to get a payout at the end, and so you are juggling with relatively huge numbers, and a lot of it, especially for beginners, is daunting because you think it's as easy as an automated print service, because those exist. If you need to buy 11 by 17 prints, you can go to a website, put in your PDF, and bam, smack, pow, you get something in a few days. But there's so many gears that are in motion at any time during the production of a book that, one thing is off, and that throws the whole thing away. And it is a lot of money that you have to pay out of.
Yeah, especially with the add-ons, some people, they don't consider how they're going to ship the add-ons for certain things, so they'll do a tier for posters. And well, how are you going to ship those, man? Are you going to roll them up and put them in a poster tube? You know how much that's going to cost you if you got to ship 500 of those, and you're going to have to ship them separately from your book. So that's 2 shipping costs you're going to have to do for one backer who ordered the book and the poster. Or you could fold the poster and piss off all your customers because they just received a folded poster with crease lines, and that's not going to do you any favors.
Or you could go the way of the first Iron Sights, where that was kind of part of the deal. It's just we're going for that vintage kind of look, so it's has to have the folds.
That's the thing that we've learned, though, that even if you type something like that into your campaigns so that you have your liability covered, a lot of people don't read that stuff, so they still get upset anyway.
Yeah, there's always.
It's just things like that where you think a poster is a good idea. It sounds intuitive, but then when you actually stop for a second to think about the logistics, you realize how much that's going to cost you and how difficult that's going to be to fulfill. One of the things that Tim and I did is during Black Ops 2, one of the tiers was the Black Ops plush, and we still have some of those, and we're still fulfilling those as a limited tier on the Black Ops 3 and Omnibus campaign, but it's a stuffed animal, so it requires a bigger box. So that's a larger, different kind of box that we have to get to ship the bunny with the book out, and that's one of those things that we considered beforehand, so it didn't hurt us in the fulfillment cost of our campaign. But it's a lot of people don't think about that, or they don't think about how much it's going to cost to produce something. Like oh, I want to do a collectible sterling ring for my campaign, like a phantom ring. Like I want a collectible ring for my people. Like, okay, how are you going to get those produced? Who's going to make those for you? Who's going to design those for you? How are you going to ship them? What are you going to bag them in? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's every single little thing. Like, if you don't do a poster, do a lithograph. A lithograph is smaller. It's basically a print, but you don't call it a print. You call it a lithograph. It all comes down to semantics. That sounds fancier. And that's something you can ship flat. You don't have to fold. You don't have to roll up. You can put it in the same box with the comic. So, like, do that instead of a poster. I mean, there's workarounds you can do.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things you have to consider. Like, the more items that you end up having to ship, like, the more you have to take into consideration, like, what you're going to ship them in. We got pretty lucky, but also we did kind of, like, plan out, like, how we're going to ship things. Like, I've been getting all kinds of comics through the mail in the last 3 years, so of course, like, I'll have a what are they called again? That you put the comics in, the standard kind of issue ones. The
Gemini mailers.
Gemini.
So I've got Gemini mailers lying around. So I would just like take one of those, like put in like everything that based like roughly on how big all our stuff's going to be in there. See if we can fit it all in, and that worked out pretty great for us. Like we're able to get everything and more into the Gemini mailers, which was really nice. But what was I? Where was I going with that? Darn it! Sorry, I lost it.
It's okay. It'll come back.
Yeah.
They always
right.
do.
But we also did do the T-shirts and the posters, which actually like for who we went with and like the quality of the posters that we got, and the T-shirts too. They turned out great. Like it was actually like one of the easiest parts and one of like the most reasonably priced parts for us with the campaign. We actually had like so little issue with the guys that we went with that it was just like over and done with, like just like a few weeks after we finished up the campaign, I think.
That's good. It's always good when your production can run smoothly. And the good thing about T-shirts is that there's a lot of competition. So there's a lot of people who are vying for that business. So it's actually not as hard to find that quote. So that's good. We actually had put off doing T-shirts for a while because there is some parts of it that are kind of difficult, especially like on Kickstarter, because, for example, like shirt sizes, you got to get that obviously nailed down before you make any drop ship purchase. So I think a lot of people tend to be shocked when they find out that some print jobs are harder than others when you would think it would be the reverse. Like, for example, finding a good comic book printer that'll give you a quote that you want is actually harder than finding a good T-shirt printer. You would think it'd be the opposite because T-shirts are bulkier, they come in a whole bunch of varieties, they're heavier, they cost a little bit more to ship, but you honestly have a lot of very good T-shirt sites to choose from. Printers, not that much. You really have to kind of know who to go with and what their quotes are going to be.
Yeah, and you have to do your due diligence with the comic printers. Like we went with Crypto Fashion for our T-shirts and the posters, and the posters are big too. Like they're like the full like movie poster size as well. And considering like the size of them and how many we had, and the fact that they did all the fulfilling for the posters and T-shirts themselves for us, like I would absolutely go with them again in a heartbeat if we did posters and T-shirts again. But with the comic printers, we shopped around. Like we had advice from some people, and we looked around at all the various names that people gave us to see like what would work best for us with our the price point that we had. And we found these guys, AM Print Solutions, and they had the right price. We were like, oh, that's a great price. They're giving us a good unit number for that price. So we'll be able to do a lot with that. And then it was just the worst customer experience I've ever had in the history of my life. It has been awful. They strung us along since October of last year, all the way up until now. They're still stringing us along because they've been paid. but they've refused
Wow.
to give us a. They've outright refused to give us a
A
a
refund?
refund. Thank you, and they've also outright refused to print our books.
Huh.
So
Gee whiz.
yeah, not a big fan of them. I will curse their name to the day I die. So yeah, if anybody else in the chat, if you're looking to get into comics, if you're looking to do some printing, I would think twice about working with them, or really like anyone from China.
Are they based in China?
Yeah, they are based in China. The printer is.
Oh,
Like
wow.
their offices and everything are in the West here in the States. I believe is I think it's Florida where they're at.
Okay.
But all their printing is done in China, and I cannot tell you the avalanche of excuses that I had to go through with these people. It was non-stop. I was on their case like every week trying to get updates, going back and forth with like print files and everything, trying to get everything just right. And they sent us one round of proofs for the first issue only, and it had a printing error right on the cover, big black, like big gray bar right across the front.
Oh man.
Like zero quality control on top of everything else that we've had to deal with them. So yeah, unfortunately, it looks like if we want to get either our books or a refund, we're probably going to have to go through some sort of legal means. On our first book, what fun!
Yeah, and the problem with that too is going through illegal means would probably end up not even be worth it because it would cost
Right.
more in your court fees than it would to actually get compensated again.
Yeah,
For,
and so they just get away with what is essentially robbery.
yeah.
No, that's China.
China.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry, Tim.
China.
It's China, okay?
China.
I'm going to take a moment here just to say hi to the folks in the chat, see if they've got any questions, all right?
Yeah.
Sounds good? Okay. So, hi, everybody. Thank you for coming on. Please like and subscribe if you could. I'm going to be doing streams once a week, every Friday at 9:30. I want to talk to all kinds of people. We'll be talking about Science Wizard stuff, iconic comic stuff with Tim and Pelly here, and so much more. Hopefully, I love talking about this stuff. It's positive, it's fun, it's informative, and I like to spread that stuff around. So hello to the chat. Hello, Dominic Powell, My Pickles, Draw and Talk, Hero Shiparadox, Rachel Hodling, and our buddy Theron Kurth. He's actually the writer for Pineapple Pizza Man, which is the comic that I am drawing. Hopefully, I'm going to have it finished by the end of the year. Fingers crossed. It's my first comic, so I'm learning a lot. I'm not the fastest artist. I'm not near on your level, Tim, but I'm busting my butt. I am having fun with it too, so I think people are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's great. And I saw that you commissioned our boy Nuxie for some art.
As soon as I saw Nuxie's art, I was just like, all right, he's open for commissions. I got to get one. I love the style, and I want to get more art with like indie comics kind of crossovers, because I think crossovers are a lot of fun. I think they're fun for the creators, they're fun for the readers, they're fun for just like art in general, because you get all kinds of different combinations that you wouldn't have ever really thought would go together, that go together pretty fun, in a fun way. So, I had to get Kamen America and the Goodest of Boys in there as well.
Well, I just appreciate that you've kept it wholesome.
Well, yeah, I mean, I try to keep, I know I can get a little spicy and stuff on my personal Twitter and whatnot, but when it comes to like the Science Wizard comic stuff and stuff like that, I do try to keep it pretty above board for the most part. We do have a separate Twitter account for the spicier side of Science Wizard, because I mean
is that Science Wizard After Dark?
That is Science Wizard After Dark. Yeah. So I mean, you know Troy Torres, creator of Wampool. He likes the spice. He likes to draw the naked ladies and on occasion the naked fellas too. So I had to put up a place for him and for Smack and Kraken as well to do their thing and share it and have it be official as well without tarnishing the good boy reputation of the regular Science Wizard Twitter account.
I do know he likes feet.
Yes.
Oh no! Did he work for Nickelodeon?
I have no idea, man. But I mean, hey, that's his thing. You know, that's his thing. That's a lot of people's thing, apparently, because he's definitely
he opened up a wide world of toes.
He's definitely found a niche. I just want to see if there's any questions. Just see what the people on here are saying. Draw and talk. Hey, hey, hey. I don't know if you're
Draw and talk.
My Pickles loves that praise, Tim. Draw and talk. Tim and Mark are super echoey. Oh, sorry about that. I am not a tech guy, so I have no idea how to fix that. I'm not getting an echo on my side. I don't know if you guys are hearing anything like that.
No, everything sounds good over here.
Okay, so hopefully I'll be able to. After the stream, I'll get into doing some troubleshooting and see if I can figure that out. So hopefully next time when we have a guest, we won't have any problems with that. Rachel Hodling, will there be a way to get just the plush or standee, like on the Iconic Comics website in the future, or only available on the campaign? Fellas?
Ooh, that's a great question. So it depends. It depends on if we have anything left over. Everything is limited. We're not, as far as the plush and the standee goes, we're not reprinting those. So once it's gone, it's gone. I'll tell you the really sad thing. So for Kamen America Volume 1, I don't even own a standee. I sold my last one. Maybe it's better because I really don't need necessarily anything more in our very small living space, but that's how
I think I stole your standee, didn't I? When we went to that con in like March, I saw the standee in the box. I was like, oh, is this for me? And you're like, yes, Mark, it's for you.
Yeah, and the plushes are expensive, like my goodness. And the good thing was we sold the vast majority of them last year, and then now this year we just had the kind of the leftovers. But once it's done, it's done. Next year, we're probably going to do a Patriotter plush. That'll probably be what our summer giveaway or our summer perk is. But no, that USAGI plush, I mean, that's it. If we make another one, it'll be a brand new design, not the same one that we've already sold.
Nice. Yeah. I always try. That's one of the reasons why I always try to get in on the Indiegogos, because I really like that, like some of the extra swag that you guys put in there. I love the standees. At some point, I'm gonna hassle you guys to figure out where you get those from, because I really, really want to make some of those for our Science Wizard characters too. They're so sharp. I love them.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And if you go to anime conventions, that tends to be the standard. Like, everyone has them. So if you go to an American comic convention at Artist Alley, you have to have prints. That's the thing. Everyone has prints. If you go to an anime convention, it's interesting. I like going to those because I think that they're more innovative in terms of what they do to try and sell you.
Yeah.
But what they have is, at the minimum, you have to have one of two things: charms or acrylic standees. If you don't have those, you're toast. You're not going to sell anything.
You get that a lot of that as well with the Artist Alley here in like some of the Comic Cons. I've seen them around. I haven't been to an anime convention.
I think it's because, one, in Canada, I think you have a lot. You're ahead of us as far as like the weeb culture is concerned. But two, well, there was no two. That was it. I think that's the reason why.
You're a bunch of weeb. That's what he's trying to say.
I can add a 2 onto there for you. I think a lot of it also has to do with like the fact that there's like a lot of cross pollination with the weeb and the comic stuff. I think a lot of like they just don't really have that disconnect here.
Right.
Like it's all comics, right? So all of our conventions, you'll have just as much of the anime stuff as you will like the the Western comic stuff. Which is nice as well, because like I like that cross pollination. I actually think when I finish up with Pineapple Pizza Man, it might actually be appropriate to take that to anime conventions, because I've been studying a lot of like anime stuff and injecting a lot of that into the comic as well. Really trying to 'cause one of the things I really love about anime, more than a lot of the Western comics, is their action sequences. They're always like so energetic and
Well,
like
that's because where they save the budget. That's where they animate all on ones for about 30 seconds, and then the rest of the episode goes back to being animated on 16s or something.
Oh no, I'm talking just purely about the manga. Like not.
Oh, the manga. Okay, yeah.
all the speed lines and the way they incorporate that into the actual like character drawings too, I think is much better at communicating a lot of the action than you see in a lot of Western comics and in some of the Western comics too. I've seen some actions that I'm just like, oh, that one needed another pass.
Yeah, it's a weird leftover thing where we still have characters engaging in very long Claremontian conversations while they're fighting. We have our dialogue mixed in with our action frequently, so it slows the kinetic aspect of the action down when you have to read a whole 10-sentence speech every panel when someone's just throwing a punch. I'm used to that. I kind of like it. I grew up on Claremont comics, but you go and you read something as basic bitch as Dragon Ball by Akira Toriyama, and the dialogue exchange during fight scenes is very sparse, and most of there isn't any, and it's just page after page of characters doing these great, amazing fight sequences, and But also, manga is released in a very different way than comics are. We have monthly floppies. Manga are done in Shonen Jump style installments, which come out every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So they get basically twice as much per month as we do. And so they can stretch out their fight scenes. They can do an entire 20-page fight sequence because they get twice as many pages per month as we do. So it's a very different medium in terms of how much content is released per month. So they have kind of a bit more leeway to extend their fight scenes and have less dialogue or story progression. But it does read so well when you pick up the Tankobon, the graphic novel at Borders or whatever, that collects the entire year or so's worth of manga in one big phone book, and you sit there and you read that and you're just like, oh man, just page after page of action, this is great.
Yeah, it flows so well too. It's funny because I find that a lot of the Western comics, there's not a lot of build-up for the action. A lot of the times you'll just see they just jump straight to the punch or the kick or whatever. And with the mangas, there's always you always see the wind up, the anticipation, the action, the follow through, and that's all as an actual animator, I think they get a lot of their inspiration or their flow,
their storyboarding,
their flow from animation, like storyboards and animatics and whatnot. It really feels like that. But then on the other hand, I almost always hate the action animes. I much prefer the manga all the time. It reads it flows quickly. You can read it real fast, and then when it comes to the animes, it goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, the anime has to do the whole filler thing, where they can't catch up to the manga, so they have to deviate or they have to fluff it out, so that you end up with the cheer section where the characters, the side characters, are watching the main characters do something and they're commenting on it in real time, which slows everything down, which defeats the whole attraction that I was just talking about with manga, where the action flows so well because they separate the dialogue from the action, so you're reading page after page of this kinetic fight scene. But the anime does the opposite, where it cuts every couple of seconds to these characters saying, oh wow, he's using his special move called the blah blah blah, he's going to be doing this, and he focuses his ki to do this, that, but exposition.
Meanwhile,
and it's oh man, you're killing it.
Yeah, meanwhile, the actual person who's watching it is just yeah, we know, we saw.
Well, I think a good exercise that's actually really interesting is go read a Silver Age Batman comic, the one that introduces Deathman, which is a famous Silver Age Batman comic. Then a lot of those issues got adapted by Japanese artists into what we call Bat manga, and they were done contemporarily because the American style comics didn't sell well in Japan back in the 60s, so they just imported those American comics and had Japanese artists remake them for a Japanese audience in a manga style. So you can read Japanese adaptations, contemporary Japanese adaptations of Silver Age American comics, and that's what that manga is. And so you can read just back to back, read the original Silver Age, like I guess is Dick Sprang, those people, Deathman comic, and then read the Japanese adaptation of that issue. And it's just like night and day. It's like 75% reduction in words and dialogue and no narration. It just reads so much more smoothly and kinetically. They don't have to describe the actions on the page as the characters are doing them. There's like a part where Batman and Robin leap down from a roof, swing on a flagpole, and then land in the seats of the Batmobile. In the American version, there's like 12,000 words that accompany it to describe what they're doing as they're reading it. In the Japanese version, it's just a quick 3-panel sequence with no dialogue, no narration. It's just done, and it reads so much better.
Yeah. I've noticed that. I haven't seen a lot of I haven't seen any or read any of the Japanese adaptations, but it makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense to me because like they do have like a very different the media that they're used to is like very different. So if you suddenly give them what we get, you're going to get like a very different reaction. They're not going to react the same way.
It is weird. One of the things I was interested in for a while when I was learning Japanese was I was trying to find Japanese dubs of American media I was familiar with, just because it helped me learn, because I already knew the dialogue in my head, so it helped me kind of decipher it. But it was what I discovered was the Japanese have a very odd way of, like, we get made fun of a lot, Americans, for badly dubbing Japanese stuff, but vice versa, the Japanese often very badly dub our stuff. And so some of the stuff I was watching was like Japanese Looney Tunes, Mickey Mouse cartoons, and Tom and Jerry cartoons. And all those vintage dubs have a narrator that describes the actions as they happen. Like, oh, and this is the part where Bugs Bunny meets Elmer Fudd, and Elmer Fudd pulls out his gun at Bugs Bunny, and he tries to shoot him, but oh, Bugs Bunny tricks Elmer Fudd. And you're like, I'm literally watching this. Why are you narrating it to me? And they do the same thing in Mickey Mouse cartoons and Tom and Jerry cartoons, which are supposed to be pantomime. It's because in Japan they just have this weird thing where, like, if it's children's media, then it needs to have play-by-play narration. The Japanese dub of the 80s Transformers cartoon is like really famous for doing that. Like every single scene is narrated in the Japanese version of the show. But it's very counterintuitive to what we would expect. We expect the Japanese versions to be looser and more organic and intuitive, and not to have that kind of thing that dumbs it down. Like they don't think the audience is smart enough to be able to watch Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd do their shtick without having to have a narrator explain it to them.
Yeah.
But that's not the way it is over there. They have a narrator explaining everything. So a lot of times your expectations are actually, subverted.
So it's kind of similar to like what it is over here, because over here, when it comes to cartoons, we also tend, like, at least a lot of the people in charge tend to also like really look down on the audience, because they do think like, oh, this is all going to be just for kids because it's a cartoon. And you'll always get like you were saying with the fighting animes, like, oh, it cuts to the people in the crowd who like are describing what's happening. It's like, yeah, we get it, we can see it. But that's one of the things that, working with Pineapple Pizza Man too, when I was going through the script, Theron wrote the script and then I was editing it. So we kind of like I have a minor co-writing credit on it, I suppose. But that was one of the things that I was really trying to like actively curb is like overly lengthy dialogue or like overly lengthy like explanations of everything. Because like
Tim can laugh at me about that, because he is always trimming my dialogue, no matter how much I try to lighten it up, and I do try my hardest to slim it down. It's just never enough, and so Tim always has to go in with the scissors when he's doing the lettering and trim the fat, and I appreciate him doing that, because I do have a hard time with that.
I think that's one of the good things about having like a team of like artist and writer that work so closely together, is because then you do have those checks and balances for each other. The writer like wants to write, and the artist wants to draw, and you have to find that middle ground, that balance, right?
No, I think it's so. I think it's a little bit different. So, yes and no. Obviously, Mark's job is to write. My job is to draw. But the reality is that there's a part of me that wishes I could write and convey the same way Mark can. Whereas I'm sure that Mark feels that there's a part of him that wishes that he could pluck out of his mind and draw. I mean, obviously, we would work a whole lot better that way. But what ends up happening is that it ends up being good because in the end we have the same vision. So when I trim dialogue from Mark, I'm not changing anything whole cloth. It's basically like, hey, I know you wrote 5 sentences, but we only have room for 3. And the only writing I'm good at is technical writing. So I'm very good at proofreading, editing, grammar, punctuation, spelling, that type of thing. I'm really good at essay writing.
That
so
tends to be where my strength is in writing as well. So once I see like a script in front of me, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, okay, well this won't fit here, because like I'm also kind of, as I'm going through the script, I'm also kind of like picturing in my head like how I'm going to be, laying out the pages as well.
Yeah, and so in Mark's head, like I look at the script that he's writing, and honestly, up until now, I never noticed until I get to the lettering phase. Then I'm like, oh man, this is a lot of dialogue. But now I've gone to the point where, because I've done it already for at least, I don't know, 8 books, I've gotten to the point where I can take one look at the script and say, this is going to be a nightmare, because I can already see the panels in my head. And so, for example, I told Mark I'm doing Kamen America 3 right now. I just finished page 5. And on page 1, I said, Mark, page 1, 7 panels. Really? Like, you really think I'm going to
execute? 2 of them were silent, though.
Like, you've seen it. I showed you that page. And
that's the thing, though, is you sent me
dialogue I had to trim out of here.
So when you sent me the proof of page 1 on Kamen America 3, you're like, Mark, just look at this and tell me, like, what I cut out and what needs to go back in, and just refinagle the dialogue. And I reread page 1. And so when Tim sends me his proofs, I don't have my script next to me. I read the proof that he sends me. And if I can't remember what he cut out, then that's how I know it wasn't important. So that's kind of my own like logic on that.
Sense,
it's like, well, if he cut it out and I can't remember it, then it didn't need to be there. So he sent me the proof on page 1, and I couldn't remember at all what he cut out. It's like, okay, well, what he cut out wasn't important then. So, it's fine.
I have to wonder, like, do you ever have come to a point where you find a page on the script and it's like something like 9 panels or something like that, let's say, just number out of the air, and you start like doing roughs and whatnot, and then you kind of like are like, oh, this should really be like 2 pages, to really properly convey this. Do you ever find yourself doing that, or do you find you rather like make cuts to it than expand it?
Rarely. It's happened a couple of times, but in each case, I typically will warn Mark ahead of time, like, hey, I took I think this works better on the next page. For example, in Kamen America, that happens twice in Volume 2, where he had a surprise, or he had a series of surprises. Typically, it was like a humorous part, or like a dramatic part, and then a comedic part right after that. And I would like turn the tables on it and say, no, let's just put this first and then the other one second. And the good thing is he trusts me on it, so I don't even tell him. I just say like, hey, this is gonna be coming, but I'm not gonna tell you where. And then he'll read it and be like, oh yeah, that actually works better. But because he's the writer, everything is designed in a very specific way. He's essentially the director of the movie. I'm basically the choreographer and the whatchamacallit, I guess production assistant or whatever. And because it's written a certain way, especially if it's on a page turn, I will have to go to him first and be like, hey, there's an issue here because this is a dramatic moment. We can't undercut it. We need to make a decision. Do we push it to the next page and dilate some of the panels, or do we do the opposite and truncate everything so that everything is fast forwarded a little bit? And then I let him make the decision in terms of what he thinks would work better. And we had a couple of that on Kamen 3. Like we just finished the final script was on Sunday. Mark sent it to me, and I said, oh, okay, we're good to go. I'll start on Monday. But there was a dramatic moment where I said, no, I get it. Like I see where we're going, but this will work better if we cut panels out and push it forward a page.
Yeah, and that worked, and that was actually an improvement. And the best thing is that we get these out of the way during the first round is during the page breakdowns, where I just send him a page by page summary of this is what happens on page 3, page 4, page 5. And then we do he sends me back his notes on that, and we reconfigure from there. Then I send him the first draft, and he sends me back his notes. And usually, but by that point, the second and third drafts I can get done in an hour because the changes are minimal. And what he sent me for Kamen America 3, I can't be specific about it, obviously, but one of the things was we had a moment that happened in the middle of a page, and he basically said, Mark, can you move this down so that it happens at the beginning of the next page, because that's the page turn, so that the dramatic moment happens on the page turn instead of the middle of the previous page. It's that's a good change. So, but what that involved logistically is that, well, if I'm going to move something from the middle of one page and put it at the top of the next page, then I have to add content to the previous page to move it down, and trim content from the next page so that I can fit. So it just becomes a logistical juggle of just kind of trying to extrapolate and condense. But it ends up not being that hard because we already have everything plotted and planned out. So the notes he gives me, I finish the first draft, I send it to him, he sends me his notes, and I have quote unquote the second draft, ready for him in an hour or two. It doesn't take me that long because the changes aren't so big, because we basically worked everything that we want out beforehand before we even start writing. So that's how we're able to produce these books in such a quick fashion, is that we plan everything out in advance, so we know what we're doing before we go into it, and that makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, I've been experiencing a lot of that with Pineapple Pizza Man, and we're also doing at Science Wizard another book with Smack and Kraken called Chicken Warrior, and so I've been doing a lot of the editing for that as well for him, because that's also his first book, True Indies. But yeah, it's been quite the interesting journey. Especially with our first book, it's taken us a really long time just to get through the scripting phase initially. Part of that was also because I had a lot of duties on the Wampool, Indiegogo campaign, managing that, doing updates and all that jazz. Plus, day job and fulfillment and payment of everything. There's a lot of hats I've been having to juggle, but once we got into it, it probably took us a month to really iron out the script and get through the different drafts. That's spread out over probably 4 months time, unfortunately. But yeah, once I started working on the roughs though, you really do kind of see how much has to change in that process, once you get to the actual art stuff, because a lot of the stuff that you see in your head when you're writing it and editing it in the scripting phase, a lot of that changes once you actually get to the actual drawing phase, because a lot of the times too, you also kind of things that you didn't really think about before, you finally see it because it's right there in front of you. I had
yeah, Tim. I'm sorry. That just reminded me. So Tim does that a lot, and he does such a great job at that. Is that I'll give panel by panel choreography or stage directions for the action, but I really leave a lot of that up to him, because he's the artist, he is the choreographer, he is the one who is setting up the action, and he'll often find a gap in my stage directions, and he'll use his imagination to fill that gap. And in Kamen America 2, I won't be specific, but he found where I left out a stage direction, and he added something in there, and it was the funniest thing I saw, and I couldn't stop laughing at it. And oh, that's great, that's awesome. Yeah. So he always pluses. Whatever I write, he always pluses it tenfold, which is perfect.
You guys definitely have a really good grasp on comedic timing in your books too, for sure. It really comes across. If anybody in the chat has not already checked out Kamen America, go check it out. It's on Kickstarter. They've raised 60,530 Canadian dollars so far. For you Americans, I don't know what that is exactly, but
10,000 pesos.
Yeah.
I put the link in the chat just there. Dominic Powell says, how long does it take work and eventually to work out and revise a script of a comic book or graphic novel?
So it takes Mark about a month and a half to actually write the script, and that's without me having any input. So I let him do the whole script, even though beforehand we sit down and we iron out a 3-act structure. So on one page, literally one page, it's like this. So Act 1, Common America 2. We start out, Carly's fighting monsters. The media is not paying any attention to her. They're fake news, completely fake. They're so wrong, so boring all the time. Bad. Act 2, new villain appears. She gets a headache because she has to contend with her personal life too. Act 3, everything comes together. She meets new friends. There's a big fight. So again, like not hardly one page worth of act structure. And after Mark and I agree on that, then what we do is we break it down into typically not couplets, but like triplets, I guess. So it's basically like, okay, pages 1 through 3, here's what happens. Pages 3 to 6, here's what happens, etc., etc. Again, there's no scripting involved. It's just outlines in terms of the big picture, then the smaller picture, and an even smaller. So then after we settle on what is happening on a page-by-page basis, Mark is good to go. It takes him about a month to script it out. And then when he sends me the script, so far, I think we've only had to have about 2 back and forths, because I'll give him some notes. He revises it, sends it back to me. I'll give it one more look, send it back to him, and then finally he gets it back to me. So between the time that he puts pencil to paper to the time we finalize the script, I would probably say a month and change.
Yeah, and during that month and change while I'm writing, Tim's drawing the previous comic, and I'm always writing the next one. So by the time he's done drawing the previous comic, I have the script for the next one ready for him, and then it starts all over again. And so so when I send my first draft to Tim, and Tim sends me back his notes, and then I adapt the notes and send them to him, sometimes Tim will find other things that he didn't notice during his first read through, and he'll ask me to change these other things. And it's exactly the same as when Tim sends me his proofs for the art on like Common America 2. I will read that proof, that PDF that he sends me like 12 times, and I will send him like these little emails saying, oh, I just noticed this time around on page something, whatever, panel, whatever, could you change this? And it probably drives him up the wall, because I'll send him like 6 emails saying, oh, I just noticed this. Oh, I just noticed this. So, we both do the same thing to each other.
Yeah, we actually have for Science Wizard, we have like a group DM that we have on Twitter that we're always like posting stuff on, and we post all our updates and checking on everything, and we kind of have like a bit of almost a community thing, so that if like I miss something, maybe Troy will catch it. If Troy and I miss something on the art, like maybe Kraken will catch it. And vice versa, and it's been really great so far. Like we've really gotten into like a good groove so far with our own workflow. Eating Crow Comics, welcome to the stream. Thank you for coming. He says, "Why is it bad to have the main action happen in the middle of a page?"
Oh, it wasn't the main action. It was a dramatic moment. So we had action going on the page, but we had this dramatic moment that needed emphasis. And so one of the tricks when you're writing a comic script is to always put your surprises or the moments you want to have maximum emphasis on an even page, because that's the page turn. So that's basically your scene transition. That's where the reader has to stop what they're doing. They have to stop reading, manually turn the page, and then they're hit with a surprise.
Yeah.
So what happened was we had the dramatic moment in the middle of an odd page, but it would have more emphasis if we put it at the start of an even page, so that we would have that page turn effect.
Yes.
And that's just one of the tricks you learn when you're writing comics.
Essentially, what it is, you could think of it almost as like sort of a micro cliffhanger, if you will. So you want to have the cliffhanger be on the page turn, which is essentially sort of like your commercial break, that tiny like fraction of a second of a commercial break, essentially, between the one page and the next. That's how I like to look at it, anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, there's just these little things that you learn as you go along, and we learn from a lot of other people. Like one of the things that we learned from Aaron Sparrow was page 7 action. is that you have to have something interesting happen by page 7 of your comic. Because if nothing exciting, it doesn't even have to necessarily be action like a fight scene as we think of it. It just needs to be something interesting or exciting. But if you have characters just sitting in a diner and chatting, and they're still sitting there and chatting by page 7, your comic is probably boring.
Sadly, there's been too many of those in mainstream comics of late. I've seen a lot of them. There's a lot of chatting in diners and eating of food. We got another comment here. Rachel Hodling again says, do you plan on continuing the Wall Might series or any new series planned for the future? Good question. Thank you, Rachel.
Currently, no. The reason why is that we've been doing these kind of Trump books for a while now. And don't get me wrong, they're a lot of fun to do. But we don't want to jump the shark. I mean, we've kind of told every joke that I think is possible. And I think we were definitely torchbearers in the beginning. There was really no one else doing what we did. And now there's a lot of them, and God bless them, because we like seeing that. But I think we've kind of run our course. I don't know. I know there's a demand for it. In fact, this is the craziest thing. Someone had actually notified me about an hour ago that our copies of Wall Might are selling for $100 on eBay, which is crazy.
I'm not surprised.
It's like a big thing people ask us is, hey, are you going to be doing any more Wall Might? Like, oh my gosh, it's so much fun. It's like, it was fun, but we have a lot of fun doing Kamen America because there's a bit of a spoiler. It's a non-political book, but we feel like we're able to get a lot of ideas in it without the political lens barring it.
Mm-hmm.
Things like for example, like traditional patriotism, some gender role things are in there as well, but they're very subtle. Like you have to really be thinking about it to kind of get it. Most people will read it and just have a good time, or as Tyler likes to say, a silly goose time.
Yeah.
And so I think it frees us to be able to tell those stories with more nuance. Whereas Wall Might, obviously, with any political parody, there's a lot of strawmanship happening. And don't get me wrong, that's funny. That's kind of how you have set up in comedy. But not that we're tired of it. It's just that we think that we don't want to jump the shark as far as our storytelling is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, just logistically too. I mean, we have Black Hops and we have Kamen America, and those are ongoing storylines that we want to develop and that we want to continue the narrative on if they're serialized. And 3 books, so we do 2 Kamen Americas and 1 Black Hops a year. At that pace, we can't sacrifice one of those to do another Wall Might book because then our stories would never progress at a reasonable pace for our readers. So we really have to trim it down to just 2 titles, and that's Black Hops and Kamen America.
I will have to say, it is a bit of a shame because I really like the Wall Might books, and I think you say that like you were the first really to do that, and that's true. But you're also the ones that did it the best. I haven't seen anything come close to the just pure irreverent fun of the Wall Might books. And the thing that I love about them the most is that they're universally accessible, like across the political spectrum. Like you don't have to be like. Well, I think so. I've known a few people who've read it who were not on the right side of things, and they thought it was like funny.
Well, wait till you get to the 3rd one. I think we're gonna get into a lot of trouble.
Oh yeah.
Next month. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, for me, that's just exciting.
Well, that's the thing is that we're already done with those. We made them, so if anybody gets mad, well, they can just they can take solace in the fact that Wall Might 3 is the conclusion of the trilogy. So what do they got to get mad about now? Okay. But I mean, Tim and I, the 2 of us, have done 4 Trump books, and Tim with other people like Chuck Dixon has done 5 Trump books. So we've done a lot of Trump stuff, and maybe like if something really funny happens in the 2nd term of Trump, when that happens, we might do another. But right now we're just focusing on our original stuff.
Yeah, waiting for inspiration to strike, essentially.
We got plenty of it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're almost at the end. Well, we're basically at the end here. We're just doing an hour-long stream. Tim and Mark have to go somewhere else to talk about theme parks.
Yes, we're going on England Teen Stream to talk about Epcot.
Yes, so if you guys want to tag along and follow them over to there and talk about Epcot and all sorts of other fun things, follow along. Head on over. I'm just going to take one last question from Dominic Powell here. He says, Pelly, who are your major influences as a writer? Tim, same question, but for art.
Well, as a writer, so for comics, I think I tried to look at the writers who are the best at telling their stories compactly and concisely, and try to diagnose their scripts. And I think the two best at it that I've read are Carl Barks on his Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck comics. They're Silver Age comics, but they're not wordy. They're actually very brisk with their dialogue, and I have a lot to learn from him on that. So that's one. The other is Paul Dini. I really recommend anybody out there pick up Paul Dini's run on Detective Comics from the 2000s, or his run on Batman Adventures, really any of his Batman comics. He tells all of his stories in one issue, and he tells a very meaty, fully fleshed out story, but he can do it in 22 pages, yet you feel like you just got a whole story arc. He's a magician at that, and his wife is also a magician. But yeah, so I try to learn from them. I've still got a lot of learning to do, but they are two writers who, just on a technical level, I'm trying to diagnose and understand how they do it, because they're fantastic at it.
Well, so far so good.
And I'd say from the artist side, as far as comics are concerned, it's definitely Joe Madureira. I think some people pronounce it Madeira. Yeah, I don't understand why, because there's two R's in there, but apparently that's how you're supposed to pronounce it.
I think it's properly pronounced Madureira.
That's how I've always said it, because
Yeah,
I'm like,
me
no,
too.
phonetically it's Madur, so Madureira, or Raira, E-I. I don't know how that's pronounced specifically. But what I've always liked about him ever since I was a kid is I think he's the only artist who successfully blended East and West into a new style that's very, very unique. So unique that you can always tell when people try to ape it, such as me. Like, that's why a part of me just kind of quit doing it, because I'm like, okay, you can never beat the best. What you can do, though, is learn from some of his technique. And then recently, we've talked about this before, but because I find myself studying more and more Japanese animation, I pretty much consume anything that Sushio does. So Sushio was the lead artist on Kill la Kill, and his colleague is probably second place, Yo Yoshinari. He's the guy who worked on whatchamacallit. He's worked on Little Witch Academia. He's worked on Gurren Lagann. They have a very similar art style in terms of a minimalist approach, but it's great for animation because it focuses more on the fluidity and just grasping what is happening at the moment. Like, don't focus so much on the details, just focus on what you're trying to convey. And I think that was probably the biggest compliment that I got personally on Kamen America Volume 1, was we had a lot of reviewers say, this looks like a Trigger comic. And I'm like, yes, that's like the biggest compliment I can get, because it means that a lot of the studying that I've done actually came into play.
And it's paying off.
I hope so. We'll see about Volume 2. Volume 2, I kind of switched the style a little bit. You'll see what I mean. I focus more on geometric patterns. It's something more experimental. So it is, in my opinion, an evolution, but I guess people will let us know when they get their copies what they think about it.
Absolutely. All right, so I think we'll call it a night for the stream there. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tim, for coming out and talking with us. I feel like we could have gone on for another 3 hours, honestly.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about. It's really hard to fit it into just an hour stream. But everybody in the chat, please make sure to check out their Twitter if you're not already following them. I got the links posted in the chat. Check out Iconic Comics, their homepage for their brand. You can get a whole bunch of their stuff there. Highly recommend. Basically anything that they do. I've been a huge fan. I've been eating up everything that they've been selling me. I'm a sucker. check out Kamen America Volume 2 on Kickstarter. Link is in the chat. And Black Hops Hopocalypse Now and Omnibus on Indiegogo.
That's us. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks for having us on. We got to stream with you again soon.
Absolutely. We got to have you back. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys.